Episode 28.
Man, I'm glad to be back.
Of 200. I'm not sure how many this is going to be, but it seems like a lot. 28.
We weren't canceled while I was gone. I'm glad to be
actually,
back.
I made fun of you during the show yesterday for only like a minute or so. It wasn't that bad. No, but episode 28, Mainline Marlins, David Winker, Tommy Stitt. You've been doing some tennis stuff. You want to get that out of the way?
Yeah, get the tennis talk out of the way. I brought you a tennis ball. I'm wearing my this is the Miami Open hat.
That's pretty nice, actually.
I got to tell you something. It was great to be at an event again. Like, it has that feel. The Hard Rock is awesome. Like, they've gone all out. It's limited fans, but being around all the players, the international,
but limited
crowd,
like when we went to spring training, that kind of limited, or
but even more.
less?
I mean, it's 700 because there's no stadium.
Right.
Grandstand is the biggest one, and it's that same thing of like pod seating. So my understanding is 700 capacity, 700 people, 700 spectators capacity. And so it definitely has a limited feel. You can see they're putting it on for TV. Obviously, the TV's covering the cost of doing it because the 700 fans. But I mean, they have all the bars open. It was interesting because even like they did something different this year where the courts have almost like skyboxes on them, like 2-layer skyboxes. You can see that you can like rent as a family, I guess, or as a unit, your skybox overlooking the court.
That's pretty cool.
So they're trying to do it like high end, and get people out there. But yeah, it was great. It was great to be around it. It was interesting. I was thinking about you because I was, one of the things that happens with these athletes when you get up close to them, I always tell people like, when you stand next to that pitcher we've talked to before, and like that guy he is throwing that ball as hard as he can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like his life depends on it. And when you see the tennis players, that's like they're hitting the ball as hard as they can hit it. Like if you or I swung like that, like we'd be in the hospital for a week, right? With a
you didn't have the job of like chasing the ball.
No, exactly. I wasn't the substitute ball boy. Right. But I got to tell you something. That's just nothing. Seeing all those ball kids out there, all these middle school and high school kids out there. I mean, it's a cool, it's a lot of ball kids. But it was interesting because I saw yesterday the agony of defeat and the thrill of victory. And the agony of defeat was I pull up in my golf cart and they're like, oh, you need to pick up this player. And I walk up to the player and like in front of like kind of this limited crowd, she's laying on the sidewalk on the ground,
right?
Just like screaming. And I thought she was hurt.
But she just lost. Dang.
And it was like the will to win. Like, it was that feeling of like, she looked like somebody who just lost a loved one, right? Like she was that angry. And it took her about 10 minutes for her to collect herself.
Wow.
And she gets up and she was back to normal. But she just walked off the court and collapsed. The emotion of it. And then I saw another, victory of someone who won, and she's calling over to Europe, just wake up, I won.
Nice.
Like these athletes care, and I just being around that again, like this is why we love sports, awesome. Right? Like I just felt like yelling sports.
Yeah, and so today it's going to be Sixto's last start before the regular season. Going against the Nationals, against Fetty. I think we got a good chance to win that game they're probably going to stretch him to 5 innings and see what happens.
I have a question for you, Tommy.
Yeah.
What do you read about the I heard on the radio the other day one of the sports guys say the Marlins are good this year. Like the Marlins are having a good spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that statement, but what's your takeaway from the success at spring training? I mean, like we're out of these 4 teams, we have clearly been the dominant team. What's your takeaway from that? Does it matter?
I mean, look, you're playing a lot of different guys that aren't even going to make the roster. So it's kind of like an aberration type situation, but I don't, I look at the guys that are going to be starting the starting rotation and then kind of the position guys that are fighting for those things. But, on individual performance basis more than anything. So, I mean, even if we lost every single game, but
that's what I'm saying.
We performed at those. Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to lose every game, but it happens sometimes.
But overall, like I just feel, it's interesting from an individual perspective. We'd have to pull up we'd have to pull up the individual stats to see how people are doing. But overall, the team has been performing well.
Yeah.
The pitching's been okay.
Pitching's pretty decent, and now they're not. After Trevor Rogers tomorrow, none of those starting 5 guys are going to pitch again. If they do, it's going to be in a B game type situation where they can stretch out a little bit more. And then part of that is you don't want to give away any of your stuff to these in-division rivals that you got to play.
Yep.
Because Pablo just the other day, he should have been the guy starting anyway. Daniel Castano started in his place, but he pitched a B game and then it stretched out his pitch count. So, I mean, we're starting to come down to the end of it. Sunday is the last spring training game. Then we got 3 days off, and Thursday's opening day.
Give me a couple. I saw, I think it was a picture in the Herald, Jazz Chisholm with his home run.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of goes to what we were talking about. Like you sometimes you just have to like, I dare you to send me down.
Right.
And he's definitely put on that performance.
Listen, somebody asked me yesterday, I was down at the tavern, and Ricky from the Whiskey All-Stars said, "Hey, so who's going to be playing second base?" And right out immediately, I said, Jazz Chisholm. He's won it. Barring something catastrophic happening between now and Sunday. Yeah, I think he's earned the job.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And I put that in a tweet the other day, and he liked it on Twitter, so that was pretty cool.
He's I got to tell you something. I am an old school baseball guy who loves these new base. I love the passion. To me, he's a guy you just can't take your eyes off him when he's on the field. Right.
He brings a lot of energy, a lot of
and he's very active on social media. He engages the fans, and this is it's just good for baseball. And then also the international aspect of it,
for sure.
It's a really cool story, and it'll be interesting to see what coverage it gets, because oftentimes people think of the Marlins being, a Hispanic team, right? Like focused on the Hispanic market. Well, guess what? Everyone in the Bahamas will be watching the Marlins this year.
Yeah, for sure. So you're getting ready to go on vacation today?
Yes.
You're leaving today?
To California.
California, what part?
Palm Springs.
Okay. It's going to be hotter than hell there, right?
No, cold. Well, we're going up. So I don't even know. We're going to, my wife has a friend that has a piece of land up there, farm. And we're gonna go hang out and ride horses and
that's cool.
Get some.
That's cool.
It's kind of a working spring break for all of us. And that's the other thing I was gonna tell you. It was interesting at tennis. The volunteers, everyone was like, this is the first thing they've done.
Oh wow!
Right, like people just haven't had a chance to go out and do something,
right?
Like community based and do stuff. So actually, this is our first trip. This is our first plane ride since the pandemic started.
Oh, cool.
So I'm looking forward to doing it.
So what I've got tomorrow is I got a kid, Jackson Missouri, who's out in Arizona, and he's kind of like our reporter from the Cactus League.
Love it.
7th grader from Eugene, Oregon.
What?
Yeah, but he's like my buddy. Cool. He's my buddy's nephew. He's a huge baseball fan, aspiring broadcaster. He wants to be the next Kirk Herbstreit. So he's going to come on tomorrow. It's going to be 8:00 there. 11 o'clock our time, and he's going to give me a little breakdown of he's been out there watching games.
Yeah,
he's a Padre and a Royals fan, so he's going to give me a little report about how those teams are doing.
That's awesome.
And I think I saw he got a broken bat from Will Meyer the other day, so
cool,
pretty fun.
That's awesome. That'd be a good show.
And then tomorrow Tony Bosch is doing his show The Ugly Truth with Nick and Tony is going to be 3 decades of NFL guys. So it's going to be Nick Turnbull, Luke Pettigrew from the Giants. Yeah. And then, oh my God, I almost forgot the other guy. Oh no. Dave Heffernan.
Yeah.
Big, great Miami player. Played on the same team with Julio Cortez, and then also played with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, the Bucs.
So basically 3 generations or 3 decades of NFL guys.
Yeah. Talking
about what it was like to be in the NFL.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm plugged for that too.
Good.
And then I went to I'm going to put these, I'm probably going to have to post some of these pictures. Fish House on Miller Road in 100th.
Yeah, one of my favorite restaurants.
Oh my God. They have, during happy hour, 50-cent oysters, 50-cent peel and eat shrimp. So I ordered 2 dozen of each.
Yeah. I love it. That's one of our favorite restaurants. My daughter, it's either Flanagan's or Fish House is her favorite thing. And so she orders, my 8-year-old daughter, Denise, orders. She starts off with a fried calamari, and then she gets grilled octopus.
Ooh, I love all that.
Hardcore.
So 6 o'clock, 6:05 start tonight. 6-0 versus Fetty. Man, we're 10-5. I want them to just finish strong to the end. Win the next 3 or 4 games.
And you'll be at opening day.
I'll be at opening day.
I won't be here.
That's all right. I'll catch some balls.
You'll represent.
I will definitely represent the podcast out there. It's going to be fun. Next week, I think I'm going to have Jeff DeForest from, I think what's he on, 940 Wins? Or
yeah, exactly. Yep, 940
guy
wins.
that I actually know from horse racing, but he also has a lot of knowledge about the team. And then I've got Lee Sterling's going to do a show with me next week, so I'm trying to pack it in talk about odds to win the World Series, how to bet baseball, run line totals, things like that. Give a little education.
Yeah, that would be cool to do that. I got to tell you something. It's funny. I thought about you the other night. I was listening to somebody, and they were talking about doing so they did a parlay, a Miami parlay. So they did Panthers to win,
right?
Heat to beat the Suns, and it was so funny because of course they lost both of them, but It was interesting seeing because the guy just wanted for fun, to do a Miami parlay. Like he wanted to be in on both games, and I hadn't of course I know what a parlay is. I was just but it was just cool. Like they were like, hey, let's do the parlay tonight so we can stay up and watch the game.
Have some reason to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So they fell flat in their face.
Right, Heat are struggling right now.
I got to tell you, so that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, the Heat. I thought it's we always talk about Dan Levitar's what do we know to be true, and that's part of what we're struggling with the Marlins, right? Like, what do we know to be true about the Marlins, right? And the question I saw a sports writer asked a great question the other day was just like, is this a bad basketball team? Like, are the Heat a bad basketball team?
Yeah, and their trade rumors and Adebayo being the top of that list. So yeah, man, they need to get their game back together because they went on a 13 game out of 13 out of 18 games they won.
But think about being the man and think about being Riley. I mean, that's what makes him great. It's like you look at this team and it's like the same team that made the NBA finals pretty much.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, we suck.
Bad.
So what are the pieces that you need or get rid of? Like, do you just tear down the whole thing? It is.
But he's a wizard. He'll figure it out.
And it's tough because you have guys like Hero. Like I watched the game the other day, like he just looks lost out there. It was interesting that the pieces aren't working.
Not as dominant as he was in the finals last year.
Are you watching tournament NCAA?
Well, I mean, now I got to wait till the weekend because there's nothing going on.
But did you watch any? I watched
a few. And I love upsets. I mean, I love Loyola Chicago beating Illinois.
I watched Oral Roberts versus beat Florida, and it's like I got to tell you something. Like I've been to Oral Roberts.
I'm sure that was painful for Andy Corge.
We need to get a Florida call. Well, did you see the guy?
I need to get a. So are you sure?
Here's where I want to go with it. It's funny. So I've been to Oral Roberts, and it's like you can't describe like how little that school is, how little that gym is. Like it's so crazy. But the level of that upset was encapsulated by the guy who got the Oral Roberts. The Florida fan who said, "I'll get an Oral Roberts tattoo if they win,
Florida?
If they beat Florida." And you should see it. It's like, the picture of like his big white butt, and it just goes like on one butt cheek Oral, on the other butt cheek Roberts. I mean, it's huge, and it's like, dude, that's a stand up. It's just so terrible.
I mean, yeah, you got to honor your word, I guess.
But I got to tell you, a shout out to my 8-year-old daughter. We're watching it. It's not she's not some huge Gators fan, but we watched that game. And she was crying afterwards, like she wanted the Gators to win. But that's how that game was so hard fought. It was an emotional game. Like the Gators came close, but I gotta tell you something. That Oral Roberts, it's like a good basketball team.
Yeah. Loyola Chicago the same way, Dan, and they made it to the Final Four 2 years ago. So don't count them out.
It's the thing. It's the key about tournament stuff, and that's what it's funny because
you got all those nuns praying for them.
Yeah, exactly. What are you gonna do? You're arguing. You're fighting against the nun prayers.
Yeah, forget that.
It's interesting because you see this thing of it's that one-off thing, right? Versus this idea of MLB. NBA 7. I mean, they always say like in a 7-game NBA season. I mean, sorry, in a 7-game NBA final, the best team's going to win.
Yep.
And NHL, same thing, right?
Yep.
They're just going to grind it out. And it's like MLB is the same thing. 160 games, we're going to find out who you are.
Right.
You know, so
it's going to be good. I still like Gonzaga to win the whole thing.
Charles Barkley was on yesterday. He said Zags or Baylor. He said during the season.
No, well, that's the other team that had a number one ranking.
He said during the season those are the best two teams, and he's like, he said he'd be stunned if that's not
anybody other than those two. Yeah, that makes sense. We got some comments. Oh yeah, you got to zoom in. From California.
I'll zoom in from California. I'll have my Angels hat on.
All right, right on. That's where Joe Madden went.
Yeah,
they got a pretty good team out there too. So episode 28 is it now? Thanks, Denise. You're amazing.
Denise, thank you.
Have a great trip, man.
Thanks, man. And I will be zooming in.
There you go.
Preview.